Hello. As you
Hi.
can see from the backdrop, here we are working from home today. Um, actually, we've been guests at the Bishop's Staff Residential talking about what it might look like as a diocese to put children and families at the centre of everything we do. And one of the things we've been considering is actually, what does a discipleship journey look like? So often we are a little bit obsessed by the numbers of people that we engage with, and maybe we lose sight of the small groups that are closest to us and the way that we can really join in with them on their journey with Jesus.
Yeah, we were talking last month, weren't we, about kind of transition points when you think about moving from one age group or school or from toddlers into school or those kind of things and that kind of transition stuff. And since then, we've been really reflecting on that whole thing about transition, but transition in terms of discipleship pathway and faith development, and how, as well as journeying through life, we need to be finding those ways that we can help people dig deeper in their experience of who God is and who God is in for them in their life. I was chatting to somebody from a church just this week about a really amazing thing that she'd done with them, with her community around Mothering Sunday, and having half a dozen children and their families coming
Mm.
to make poses together and talk about what Mothering Sunday was, and think about where God was in that and how the church fitted into that. And I was encouraging her to think about what's the next thing for those children and their families. What might be the next steps to continue on that journey with them? Not just about inviting them to another event, but actually how might what they'd experienced in that one setting inspire them to find out more about the idea of a maternal God, for instance, or how our relationship with God is like being in family. Um, and that's one of the things that I think, as Joe says, we can sometimes forget about because we're so caught up in the things, that actually these are people who are not just journeying with us, but journeying with God in their experiences, and in their faith as it develops and grows.
Yeah, so there's questions for us to ask of the people that we do engage with, and where are the opportunities within those spaces? For example, at Messy Church, do you have an opportunity where people might come and talk to you about what they would like to happen at the next Messy Church? Have we got everything so planned and nailed down that nobody can come along and say, could we really explore this story? Or actually, I've been thinking about God and what God might mean in this aspect of my life. Um, where are we giving people voice and therefore a certain amount of agency? And I wonder if when we don't do that, that's why we don't see the growth of discipleship and the journey into faith that we would really pray would be happening in people's lives.
Yeah. And as people do grow in their discipleship, I think if we reflect on our own lives and our own journeys, we recognize that we hit a point where we grow the most when we're actually serving others.
Mm.
So how are we empowering and releasing people to take on some of those roles and some of those service things, not just within the group, but in other parts of church life or other parts of their community life, so that they can explore what it means to be an active disciple, living out an everyday faith in what they're doing, and not just be passively part of a thing that you're taking all the responsibility of.
In this season, as we move towards Easter and actually think about what it was like for Jesus' first disciples to be left behind, um, and the ones that needed to take up the baton and actually live out their discipleship and then their apostleship. Yeah, that's a good question to be asking of how we enable others to do that too.
And of course, it's important that we continue to develop ourselves as disciples as
Mm.
well. So sometimes, particularly through this season of Eastertide, when we reflect on our own journeys, sometimes it's about thinking about, how am I being discipled? Am I so busy with the work that I'm doing that I'm missing out on my own following and my own depth of faith? So, if that's something that you might want to explore, then we can help you with that. Or speak to somebody in your church, find yourself a spiritual director or somebody that can help you as you continue to grow.
So, we will see you again next month, and in the meantime, have a really blessed Easter and the joy of the resurrection.
Amen to that. See you soon.
Bye.